respected chair, co-chair, Professor Partha, distinguished dignitaries over here. I am of course going to speak about the movement of green pilgrimage in that sense as such, and somewhere of course I try to just locate how we can have sociology and sanitation together. And it's basically the question of interlinkage of polity and religion to some extent. I think when we speak about this whole discourse, I think the sanitation is going to be more prime, and the environmental sanitation, of course, is going to be the burning concern. And in that framework, of course, I think there is a need for having certain amount of convergence between the media, the civil society, the activists, and of course, I think it's not only that. Somewhere, of course, we also need to have certain amount of public discourse. I think that is again important to bring out that issue. And that public discourse, of course, should have certain amount of institutionalization. So basically, it has to be institutionalization of the social mobilization. If we are reaching to that level for sanitation, I think then we are in the right track. And of course, if you try to see in sociology proper, of course, we have to really see that what we can have in sociology for sanitation. I think if we try to see Indian sociology proper, somewhere we try to find out that the whole sociology started with sanitation to some extent. I'm trying to reinterpret sanitation. I think talking about Dumo, who said that religion, of course, as a base of Indian society. And then, of course, I think in his own connotations, of course, he spoke about the pure and the impure. So I think the pure, of course, somewhere we can refer to sanitation in that sense. So I think the pure and the impure debate is going to come up in that sense. And we should not restrict to the two dichotomy. We have also to see it as a process in that sense. And there, of course, I think if we say sensitization, of course, we can say it's a move towards sanitation. I think we have to see how we are going to debate it out. And it's not only that. Somewhere, of course, we can also see the secularization as a sort of sanitation, where, of course, we want to have the religious purity, the expansion of the frontiers of religion, and the accommodation in that sense. That, of course, can be seen as an amount of sanitation. And in that context, of course, if we try to see, somewhere we try to see that the Indian religion in that sense, of course, has this whole discourse of the karma theory. You have the pap and the punya, and of course everybody has done some pap, and of course I think in order to overcome that pap, you have to have some punya, and of course here comes the location, the Kumbh Mela to some extent, the Haridwar and other places, where you can actually wash out your pap in that sense. So it's basically that the sanitation of the pap in that sense. Of course, the purification of the paps in that sense can be seen as a certain amount of way the religious force which is making the people to be purer in that sense. So of course, how pap can be moved towards pure sanitation or becoming important. And apart from that, of course, somewhere I'm also trying to locate the Kumbh Mela in that sense. Mela, of course, normally has been seen as having certain negative connotation. Mela, of course, which of course is having the crowd, the nuisance in that sense, nudity, you have the crisis, noise, pollution, everything in that sense. But I'm trying to see the positive dimension within that, the functionality of Mela. And of course, somewhere I'm trying to feel that the Mela in that sense is seen as a site for the spread effect of the sanitation in that sense. Somewhere, of course, we can't think about this religious site as a point, a focal point from where we can have the idea of sanitation. Because Kumbh Mela, of course, can be seen as a miniature of the Indian society, people coming from the different parts. And of course, I think they will be coming, and then the message for sanitation is going to be spread out in the different corners in that sense. So we can see it in that sense, the conversion of people from pollution to purity in terms of mind in that sense. That, of course, can be another way of looking to the positive dimension of this Mela in that sense. And somewhere, of course, I just also try to locate that where was sanitation located in the Mela proper. And somewhere, of course, I just try to say that there is a power of sanitation. Power of sanitation, of course, can be seen as a sort of a discourse on the holy, or of course the revival of Hinduism in that sense, or maybe of course speaking about the religious diversity in that sense. And of course, I have just tried to have some history about how the things have come up into the picture in that sense, about the historicity of Mela and all that. And there, of course, I think I just try to see that the Kalpvasi phenomenon was there. The Kalpvasis who month or so for having their own revival and all that, the purity and all that. And it's not that this was something sanitation which we are talking about right now. It has its bearing long back, and it was basically in 1860s when this Pragwalas, the Pandas of course who tried to debate out this issue of hygiene, sanitation and all that. And basically the discourse which came up, we can just locate it in the so-called British administrative record that came up in the so-called 1868. And later on, of course, if you try to see, we have certain other moves, like when we speak about the convergence of religion, you have the Hindu-Sikh religiosity which came together in that sense, the convergence of that, which was been reflected in 1924 by Madan Mohan Malviya. You have also the colonial intervention which took place, whereby of course the power of sanitation was being reflected. The colonial rulers in that sense, they tried to negate that we can't hold Kumbh Mela on the account of the sanitation in that sense. So I think the power of sanitation to resist the people in that sense, and how the people they try to overcome. And for that reason, of course, somewhere they try to, in 1924 onwards, the people they try to have more and more masses in that sense, which has been planned by the Pandas in that sense, and they say that there should be more inclusion of the people. So it has a move from the royal people, the king stan, the Shahi stan population, to the subaltern and the other groups. So it was being open for the masses in that sense. So in the United Provincial Mela Act of 1938, you have a mention of giving the official sites, the allotted sites, without any prejudice in that sense. So basically the inclusion of many in that sense, of course, is in the account. And finally, of course, I would just like to say that coming to the end, because I'm getting call again and again. So I will just say that now there is a need for the revival, or of course an appeal from the masses in that sense. The religious leaders in that sense, they are coming up in the forefront, boycotting the Shahi stan and all that. And I think somewhere if you try to see the whole discourse, we try to say that these Shahi akhadas in that sense, they are trying to pollute, and the population is going to have a sort of a purity out of that pollution in that sense. So we have to really see that how the pollution is being created, and then of course the purity is taken out of that pollution in that sense. We have to see that dimensions also. And finally, of course, I will just say that at the end, that there is a need for right to sanitation. And somewhere, of course, I should say that there should be a syllabization of the film range in that sense as well. And I invite the Syllab International at Kumbh, being located at Allahabad. So I can, of course, with the person there, of course, the Syllab International can flow from Kumbh Mela. Of course, it is there, but I think the sensitization about that can be made out from there. Thank you.